I have looked down at a lot of case files in 36 years. Most of them tell you the basics: a name, a date, a violation, numbers and codes on paper. But there was one morning when I opened a file, looked up at the woman standing before me, and understood immediately that no piece of paper in the world could hold what she was carrying. What she showed me that day, I will take it with me for the rest of my life. If you believe that the people who walk into a courtroom deserve to be truly seen, not just processed, I want you to subscribe to this channel right now. Because this story is about what happens when a judge remembers that justice has a heartbeat. Her name was Rosa Navarro, 34 years old. She came to the podium on a Tuesday morning in November. The courtroom was cool, the way it gets when the heat hasn't quite caught up to the cold outside. She was wearing a dark green coat that was clean and carefully buttoned. Her hair was pulled back neatly. She held a manila envelope against her chest with both hands, the way you might hold something you were afraid to drop. The charges were driving with a suspended license and an unregistered vehicle. The suspension had come from unpaid fines, which had grown over 8 months into a total of over $700. She had also missed her original court date, which meant a bench warrant had been issued. On paper, she looked like someone who didn't take the law seriously. I've learned not to trust paper alone. When her eyes met mine, I saw no defiance, no calculation, no attempt to charm or deflect. What I saw was exhaustion. Deep, settled exhaustion. The kind that lives in a person's bones after a very long time of holding everything together with nothing left to spare. "Ms. Navarro," I said, keeping my voice quiet. "Good morning. Can you tell me what brought you here today?" She opened her mouth, closed it, swallowed. "Yes, Your Honor." Her voice was steady, even though her hands were not. "I know how this looks. I know missing the court date made everything worse. I'm not here to argue about the violations. I just want to explain if you'll let me, and then I'll accept whatever you decide." That last sentence stopped me. Most people who stand at that podium spend their first 2 minutes explaining why they shouldn't be held responsible. This woman began by accepting that she would be. That's not something you coach. That's character. "Take your time," I said. "I'm listening." She had a son named Mateo, 8 years old. 14 months earlier, Mateo had been diagnosed with a rare autoimmune condition that attacked his joints. On bad days, he couldn't fully open his hands. He couldn't tie his shoes. Some mornings, getting out of bed made him cry from the pain. He was 8 years old. The condition was manageable with medication and regular visits to a specialist at Hasbro Children's Hospital in Providence. But manageable meant constant. Every 2 weeks, Rosa drove Mateo to his appointment. The medication alone cost nearly $300 a month after their insurance covered what it would. Her husband had been laid off the previous winter. He'd found part-time work, but their income had been cut nearly in half. They fell behind. First on small things, then on bigger ones. "The registration lapsed," she said. "I knew it had. I kept thinking I would catch up, that next month would be easier. But next month kept being the same as this month. And Mateo's appointments, I couldn't stop those. I just couldn't." "Of course not," I said. "The day I was pulled over, we were coming home from the hospital. Mateo had just had blood drawn and a joint injection. He was hurting. I was focused on him, on getting him comfortable, on being calm for him, so he wouldn't be more scared than he already was." She paused. "I should have sorted out the registration. I know that. I just kept running out of room." "And the court date you missed?" Her jaw tightened, not with defiance, with grief. That morning, Mateo had a flare. His hands swelled up badly overnight. He was screaming when he woke up. I took him to urgent care. I sat there for 5 hours. She looked down briefly. By the time I remembered the court date, it was already afternoon. I called to explain, but I didn't know what number to call or who to talk to. I left a message. "I don't know if anyone got it. I'm sorry. I should have found a way." I looked at her for a moment. "Where is Mateo today?" "My neighbor is with him. She watches him when I have to come somewhere like this. She's been very kind. Is he in school? A small, tired smile crossed her face. Just for a second, when he can be. He loves school. He hates missing it. Her voice softened. He's a very bright boy, Your Honor. He reads everything he can find. He wants to be a scientist. I asked to see what was in the envelope. She hesitated, just briefly, then stepped forward and handed it to Officer Reyes, who brought it to me. I opened it carefully. Inside were 3 things. The first was a stack of medical records, appointment confirmations, lab results, medication receipts. She'd organized them by date. She wasn't asking for sympathy. She was presenting evidence. She was treating my courtroom with the seriousness it deserved. The second was a letter from the Children's Hospital, a brief note from Mateo's specialist confirming his diagnosis, his treatment schedule, and the medical necessity of his bi-weekly visits. The third was a single piece of paper, folded in half. I unfolded it. It was a drawing, done in pencil and orange crayon. 2 figures in a car. The larger one had long, dark hair and was holding the steering wheel. The smaller one was in the passenger seat, leaning against the window. Above the car, written in careful, blocky letters, the way a child writes when they are trying very hard to do it right, were 4 words: "Mom drives me there." And below the drawing, in the same careful handwriting, "My mom always comes. She never doesn't come. Please don't be too mad. She's a good mom." From Mateo. I have presided over this court for 36 years. I have heard stories that would break your heart. I have delivered rulings that cost me sleep. I have sat in this chair through the full range of what human beings are capable of, the best and the worst, and everything in between. But there is something about a child's handwriting, something about the way a small person tries to speak up for the person who has always spoken up for them. It reaches past everything professional, past the robe and the bench and the 3.5 decades of experience. It just reaches in. I had to set the paper down and look away for a moment. I took a breath. I looked at Inspector Reyes, who was studying the ceiling with great focus. I looked at the prosecutor, a man named Alan Park, who has 3 children of his own, and was suddenly very interested in the contents of his folder. Then I looked at Rosa Navarro, who was watching me with her hands clasped, waiting, doing everything in her power to be composed. "Miss Navarro," I said, and my voice was quieter than usual. "Did Mateo know you were bringing this today? He drew it the night before. He was worried about what would happen to me. I told him I was going to see a judge, and he asked if judges were scary." A small break in her voice. I told him some judges are scary and some aren't. He said he'd draw a picture just in case, so you would understand about the car. I nodded slowly. He understands that the car is how he gets to his appointments. Yes, sir. He's young, but he understands more than I'd like him to. He knows that if I lose my license, if the car is impounded, he doesn't know exactly what that means, but he understands it would make things harder. He worries about me. Her voice caught. He shouldn't have to worry about me. He has enough of his own to deal with. This is the part of the job that no one prepares you for. Law school teaches you statutes and precedents. Experience teaches you procedure and patience. But nothing teaches you how to sit with the weight of a case like this one. Because here is the truth. Rosa Navarro broke the law. That is not in dispute. She drove on a suspended license. She drove an unregistered vehicle. These laws exist for real reasons. They protect people on the road. They keep systems functioning that we all depend on. And also, this woman had spent 14 months pouring everything she had into keeping a sick child alive and moving toward the future he deserved. Both things were true, at the same time, in the same courtroom. That is what the law sometimes asks you to hold. Not simple questions with simple answers, but real human lives that don't fit neatly into categories. My father was a tailor. He worked 60 hours a week for most of his adult life. He used to say that the measure of a person's craftsmanship wasn't how they worked on perfect fabric, It was how they worked on fabric that was already fraying, how carefully they handled it, how much they tried to save rather than discard. I thought about that, sitting there with Mateo's drawing in front of me. Ms. Navarro, I said, let me ask you something. Do you have insurance on the vehicle?
I let it lapse as well, Your Honor.
I know. I'm going to say the same thing, that I kept thinking next month. I'm ashamed of that. Do you have any family in the area who can help?
My sister helps when she can. She has her own family. I don't like to ask too much.
What does your husband do currently?
He works at a supply warehouse, 3 days a week. We're hoping it becomes full-time. His supervisor has been good to him.
I looked at the file again, then at her. You drove to every single one of Mateo's appointments. Every one, Your Honor. I have never missed one. In 14 months. Yes, sir. I asked Inspector Reyes to approach the bench. I spoke quietly with him for a moment. He nodded and stepped away to make a note. Then I turned to Alan Park, the prosecutor. Mr. Park, given everything presented today, does the state have any flexibility in how it wishes to proceed? Alan Park is a good man. He stood up and spoke plainly. Your Honor, the state is satisfied to leave this entirely to the court's discretion. We have no objection to a compassionate resolution. Good prosecutors understand that their job is not to win. Their job is justice. And Alan Park never forgot that. I turned back to Rosa. Here is what I am going to do, I said, and I want you to listen to all of it before you respond. She nodded, gripping the edge of the podium lightly. The violations are real, and I am not going to pretend they aren't. Part of my responsibility is to make sure that people understand the law applies even when life is hard, maybe especially then, because the law has to be consistent to mean anything. So I am not dismissing this entirely. Her expression didn't fall. She had come in expecting the full weight of it. Anything less was already more than she'd hoped for. However, I continued, I am reducing the total fines to $50. $50, payable in 60 days. Not because you earned a pass, but because proportional justice means the consequence should fit the full reality of the situation. $700 for a woman in your circumstances doesn't create accountability. It creates collapse. And a collapsed mother cannot take care of an 8-year-old boy with a chronic illness. I saw her exhale. One long, quiet breath. I am also continuing the license suspension for 60 days, during which time Inspector Reyes will connect you with the Rhode Island License Reinstatement Assistance Program. There is a pathway for people in financial hardship to clear suspensions and get properly insured at reduced cost. We are going to make sure you are on that pathway before you leave this building today. When you return in 60 days with proof of registration and insurance, the suspension will be lifted and this matter will be closed. She pressed her hand over her mouth, just for a moment. One more thing, I said. Inspector Reyes is also going to give you information about the Ronald McDonald House's Family Assistance Fund and the Rhode Island Medical Foundation's Hardship Program. I cannot promise either will help, but families in your situation have received meaningful support from both. You are going to take that information and you are going to reach out to them. Not next month, this week. Can you commit to that?
Yes, Your Honor, yes, I will.
Good. I paused. And now I want you to give Mateo a message from me. She looked up. Tell him that his drawing is one of the best pieces of evidence I have ever received in this courtroom. I let that sit for a moment. Tell him that his mother showed up today with all of his appointments organized, all of his medical records in order, and a letter from his doctor because she prepared and she took this seriously. Tell him that is exactly what a good mother does. And tell him that Judge Caprio says he has a very smart mother and a very big heart, and that he should keep wanting to be a scientist. We need more of those. Rosa Navarro's composure finally broke. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Her shoulders dropped and tears came, and she didn't try to stop them. She just stood there and cried in the way that people cry when they have been holding everything for a very long time, and someone finally says, I see you. You're not invisible. What you're doing matters. I looked away and gave her the moment. Inspector Reyes brought her tissues. The court reporter was dabbing her eyes. Someone in the gallery, an older woman near the back, was holding her hand over her heart. After a moment, Rosa looked up. "Thank you, Your Honor. I don't have words for what this means." "You don't need words," I said. "You need 60 days and a working car. Go get them, and take care of yourself as well as you take care of that boy. He needs his mother strong." "I will." She gathered herself. "I will. God bless you, Ms. Navarro. I'll see you back here in 60 days. She came back in 45. Not 60 days, 45. Registration current, insurance active, documents in hand, everything organized in the same careful way she'd organized the medical records the first time. It was a 3-minute hearing. I looked everything over, confirmed it was all in order, and closed the case. As she turned to leave, she stopped. "Your Honor, Mateo wanted me to give you this." She reached into her bag and placed a small, folded piece of paper on Officer Reyes's desk. He brought it to me. I opened it. It was another drawing. This one showed a man in a black robe behind a tall desk. The figure had a round face and was smiling. Beside the desk stood a woman and a small boy. The boy had his arm raised, waving. Above the drawing, in those same careful, blocky letters, "Thank you for being nice to my mom." And below it, in slightly better handwriting than the first letter, as though he'd practiced, "I got a good report at my doctor. I'm getting stronger. I still want to be a scientist. From Mateo, age 8. I keep both drawings. They're in my chambers, framed, on the wall where I can see them from my desk. People ask about them sometimes. I tell them they are evidence, the most important kind, not the kind that proves a violation, the kind that proves why this work matters. I've been asked over the years what the hardest part of being a judge is. Most people expect me to say the serious criminal cases, the ones with real consequences, long sentences, permanent records. But honestly, the hardest cases are the Rosa Navarros, the people who broke the law for the most human of reasons, who showed up ashamed and tired and holding an envelope against their chest like it contained the only thing they had left to offer, who came expecting to be processed and hoped to be heard. Because with those cases, you have to think. You cannot run on procedure alone. You have to sit with the discomfort of two true things at the same time and find a path that honors both. The law matters, and so does the human being standing inside it. My father used to say that any system is only as good as the people running it, that rules written on paper are only as wise as the person applying them. He wasn't talking about the law specifically. He was talking about life, but I found it applies. A courtroom can be a cold place. Fluorescent lights, hard chairs, a raised bench designed to communicate authority. It can feel like a machine, and when people walk in already frightened, already beaten down, that coldness can crush them completely. Or it can be something else. It can be the place where someone finally stopped and said, "Tell me what's really happening. Let me understand the full picture. Let me do what I can, within what I'm allowed, to make this better rather than worse." That's the choice I try to make every morning when I put on this robe. Not to be soft, not to ignore the law, but to remember that behind every case number is a person, and behind that person often is a child drawing pictures the night before because they are 8 years old and scared, and the only thing they know how to do to help their mom is pick up a crayon. Mateo is 9 now. Rosa sent me a photograph last spring. He's at the beach with his sister and a cousin, arms spread wide, running toward the water. You'd never know, looking at that picture, what that small body has been through. But I know. And I think about him on the days when the docket is long and the work feels routine, when it's easy to forget that every name on that list is someone's whole world. He runs toward the water like he owns the morning. That's enough to keep going. If this story stayed with you today, pass it on to someone who needs a reminder that kindness and justice are not opposites. They were always meant to work together. God bless you. Take care of each other.